if it works out that way. So the last 3 weeks, and including this week, we're talking about the not self characteristic in different ways. We've been relating it to the 3 marks of existence of anicca, impermanence, anatta, the not self characteristic, and the resulting dukkha. And also looking at it in different ways, and also in relationship to dependent origination, and how from ignorance an insubstantial, though seemingly substantial, ego personality is formed. And it's that ego personality that we have to deal with. And the one thing I want to say about that, it's very, very easy to objectify the ego and give it much more power than it deserves. And I should say that the ego doesn't deserve any power or any significance, because it really has nothing. There's no permanence in it, and its form and its function has arisen out of ignorance. And hopefully I can explain that a little bit deeper, but so you'll understand it, because that's the essence of the Dhamma, is understanding that what we've created, the reality we think that we've created, including ourselves in that reality, is actually rooted in ignorance. It looks like I probably could have used a little bit more light for this recording, but that's okay. That's the way it's going to be, a little bit of a spooky Dhamma. And we are so interwoven, or I should say, we have so interwoven or clung ourselves to our environment that it's nearly impossible to see where ignorance ends and wisdom begins, meaning where unreality ends and reality begins. Yeah, you just have to get used to me like this. This is from the chapter that you read this week. The ongoing ignorance of an ego self must be recognized and abandoned through the development of wisdom. That's really the whole point of developing wisdom, where there was once ignorance. It is also wrong view to conclude that it is an ego self that is gaining wisdom. And that's part of the problem. If we think that we're trying to elevate this thing that is stuck in ignorance to a higher level of consciousness or existence, that's the biggest trap of all. Because what we're trying to instill wisdom in is something that is completely rooted in ignorance. In other words, it's not, wisdom is not acceptable to ignorance. So every remnant of ignorance, which really means every thought that is rooted in ignorance, must be recognized and abandoned. It sounds like a nearly impossible charge to do, but it really isn't. It really is just simply a matter of developing the Eightfold Path. I just slowed my voice down. I hope Lorna is online, because when I start talking quick now, I think of Lorna at last week's class telling me to slow down. So hopefully I'll remain slow, so you can understand me anyway. Let me continue. There is nothing substantial or sustainable to gain wisdom. It really is. Well, I want to get to a certain amount tonight, so I don't want to get too sidetracked with my own talking. The views of an ego self are rooted in ignorance. Rooted, I mean, they arise from ignorance. So there's nothing there to protect except ignorance. Ignorance can never give rise to wisdom or to understanding. Wisdom arises when ignorance of the Four Noble Truths is supplanted by the profound knowledge of stress, understanding the nature of stress, and the experience of the cessation of the 5 clinging aggregates. And within that last sentence, we're talking about the 3 marks of existence, aren't we? So let me read one more paragraph there. The developed skills of concentration and mindfulness and the ongoing direction and guidance of the Eightfold Path diminishes I-making or conceit. It is from this perspective that dependent origination can be usefully and effectively understood. I see how many people struggle with trying to understand dependent origination, especially when they first hear it, and it can't be done. It took me many, many years to understand it in the right context, and now it does seem like the most obvious thing in the world, but it takes the right context. It takes a well-concentrated mind. It's something that the Buddha admonished Ananda on. Ananda claimed that he was understanding dependent origination so easily. The Buddha knew better, and he chided him for it. Eventually, Ananda got it, though. He awakened. One more there's another a few paragraphs here that I should read to keep this in context. The Buddha was asked on one occasion, is the one who acts the same as the one who experienced the result of the act? And notice the self-identification and even the question. The Buddha responds, to say the one who acts is the one who experience. I'm sorry. The Buddha responds, to say the one who acts is the one who experiences is one extreme. To say the one who acts is someone other than the one who experiences is the other extreme. So that's a belief in outside forces such as creation, reward, or punishment bringing individual experiences, meaning that we aren't in control of most of what's occurring. We can only, with that type of thinking, that we're constantly living in this environment of reward and punishment based on our thoughts, words, and deeds in an almost instantaneous way, and almost in a way that we foolishly think that we can create what's occurring out of whole cloth. And so what's occurring in the present moment, if we're agitated, it's because we're acting out of ignorance. If we're able to maintain a calm and peaceful mind, a well-concentrated mind through the framework of the Eightfold Path, then what unfolds is avoids those extremes of even leading to those questions. So when you think about the question and think about it in the context that this is a confused and deluded individual prone to craving and clinging, looking to establish the self in any way that he can. And so he's trying to establish himself in these concepts, of one who acts or one who doesn't act, and receiving something of permanence from that, meaning receiving a permanent benefit. And that's the Buddha's response, is that you're chasing after something that is just impossible. It's rooted in ignorance. Let go of even the attempt to enhance, embellish, or fix this self. Simply recognize the wrong views and let go of those views. And this now leads to what I was talking about a little earlier. Okay, that's not working. The idea that this ego self, or anatta, or the five clinging aggregates, or karma, I could probably think of a few other ones that are really describing the process of suffering rooted in ignorance. So karma is a way of explaining why it keeps occurring, because we haven't done anything to change the direction of our life. The five clinging, meaning why suffering keeps occurring. So, and if you want to know what your karma is, just look at what your life is, because that's a reflection of your karma. Karma means the present unfolding of past intentional acts moderated by the present level of mindfulness, meaning what we're holding in mind determines our experience much more so, significantly more so, than the act itself. The not self characteristic, the Buddha used that term, or anatta, to simply say that what you believe, the views you're using to establish and maintain a self are rooted in ignorance. Let go of the views. And that's what anatta means. It means a self rooted in wrong views. At exactly what the five clinging aggregates mean, and they're the experience of a self rooted in wrong view. Dependent origination states that it is from ignorance through 12 observable causative links that results in that personal experience of suffering. Dependent origination describes the ongoing process of I-making that we must maintain in order to continue our own confused and deluded state. So again, if you have any questions as I'm going along, I'll check my email. I'd appreciate it. So I want to touch on the Baba Sutta, because this relates and it kind of pulls everything that we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks together. Give me a second to just find it. I got a new tablet here too, so it's taking me a little bit of time. Where is it? There it is. Nope, that's not it. Okay, this is the Baba Sutta. You remember that we, I think we concluded our last retreat with this, maybe the Loka Sutta, but I mean the Mula Sutta too. But this was all part of our Sunday morning, I think. On one occasion, Ananda went to the Buddha, bowed and sat to one side. He was unsure of the meaning of becoming, and so he asked the Buddha. You remember that becoming is mentioned often. And it's also mentioned in dependent origination in that between the 7th and 8th line, I believe. Becoming, Ananda asks, to what extent is there becoming? The Buddha responds, Ananda, if there were no karma ripening within the feeling property, would the feeling property be noticed? So this is another interesting, just a quick little point here, how the Buddha's teachings method, this is one of them, that he would answer a question with a question to start directing the questioner's mind in the right direction. And this is just a very useful example of that. Ananda, if there were no karma ripening within the feeling property, would the feeling property be noticed? So karma is a present unfolding of past intentional actions moderated by the present quality of mindfulness. The feeling property, form property, and the formless property, we'll get to that, relates to the 5 clinging aggregates. You remember how the form is part of the aggregates. The formless relates, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. You'll remember the feelings are part of the aggregates. Thoughts are part of the aggregates. These are all, it's relating to the aggregates in different ways. It's relating to suffering in different ways, but also relating to the establishment of karma, which keeps driving either our ignorance or our awakening process. Ananda answers, no, wise teacher. In this way, karma is the field, and thinking about cultivating a field. Karma is a field, consciousness the seed, meaning what we hold in mind is what is going to give birth. It's what's going to grow in our field. Consciousness the seed, and craving the moisture. So the food, the sustenance for that continued thinking is ignorance. Because ignorance is rooted in craving. And so that ongoing craving for a self-referential existence, moment by moment. Remember that anatta must instill itself in every thought, word, and idea that occurs. And that's the subtle stress that really consumes our lives. Even even when we're not noticing it, when we're indifferent to what's occurring in our life, that underlying stress is still there. Let me continue this too. The consciousness of these are the Buddha's words, by the way. The consciousness of human beings is rooted in ignorance and bound by craving. It is established in wrong view. Bound by craving. It's the continual craving for a self-referential existence that continues our suffering. I'm looking at the screen, but I just looked up. I will put some more lights on, but I hope this video is not too scary for anybody. Just kidding. The consciousness of human beings rooted in ignorance and bound by craving is established in wrong view. Established in wrong view, renewed becoming is produced. That one line there is a better description of karma than any I've heard recently, except the one that I gave, because it gets right to the point. In wrong view, renewed becoming is produced. The longer we maintain, or in maintaining wrong view, we continue our karma that continues the direction of ignorance. And it is the eightfold path that once we integrate that into our mind, into our lives and into our minds, that we literally change the direction of our life, because now the eightfold path is guiding our life rather than a self-referential ego self that is rooted in ignorance. In other words, we have something that itself is rooted in wisdom, the eightfold path, guiding us towards awakening, guiding us towards full human maturity, instead of our own confused and deluded thinking. Which, when I look at how much embellishment and destructiveness have been done to the Buddha's Dhamma since he left it to us, it's because of that. It's because of the self-referential ego self insisting on creating or making things that fit its views, including look at modern Buddhism, and you'll see that most of modern Buddhism, the doctrines that are portrayed and established, are doctrines that are all rooted in I-making. The big difference with what the Buddha taught and what has developed since then. The Buddha continues, if there is no karma ripening in the form property, would the form property even be noticed? In other words, if we freed ourselves of karma, of the results of ignorance, would we even notice the 5 clinging aggregates as a vehicle for suffering? And of course, the answer is no. We've been beyond that. The aggregates themselves are still present in the world, And we as individuals are still using the components of those aggregates. We still have a physical body. We still have feelings and thoughts and perceptions and ongoing thinking. They're just no longer rooted in ignorance. And so now wisdom is the animating force to a human life rather than ignorance. The human being, I'm going to say that again, I'll say it a different way. A human being can be motivated, inspired, continued in one of two ways, either through ignorance or through wisdom. And if it is through ignorance, that human being is prone to confusion, ongoing deluded thinking, and is opening themselves up for constant suffering and disappointing experiences. A human being who is rooted in the Eightfold Path is moving away from all of those things that cause suffering and moving towards awakening. And it is in this that I'm trying to make tonight's point, I think. And I started out a little bit earlier with this, that what we recognize, or what we think is a self, is so enmeshed or clinging to, or absorbed even, or joined, which is a word that the Buddha would often use, joined to our environment. And because we are working to preserve that environment, we can't escape it. We have to recognize that there's no value in maintaining the five clinging aggregates, because there's no value or reasonableess in maintaining the five clinging aggregates, because we clearly can see that it just leads to more suffering. So that notion of annihilation comes up at this point. It may not have for all of you tonight, but it will if you think about this a little bit more, probably. What happens when I let go of all those wrong views? Won't this thing that I'm so enamored with, this thing called self, what will happen? It will just vanish, won't it? It will, but it won't. It will be of no consequence when it vanishes. And what you will have then established is a mind free of the ignorance of a self-referential existence. And that's really the whole point of the Buddha's Dhamma. So let me continue with the Bhava Sutta. There's just a little bit more to it. And then again, if you have any questions, please send them. I'll check my email. Go back one sentence line like I usually do. If there is no karma ripening in the form property, would the form property be noticed? No, wise teacher. In this way, karma is the field, consciousness the seed, and craving the moisture. The consciousness of human beings rooted in ignorance and bound by craving is established in wrong view. That's an important word. We have to understand what established means. It's stuck in there. It's there. There has to be something direct and meaningful to de-establish that self. Established in wrong view, renewed becoming is produced. If there is no karma ripening in the formless property, would the formless property be noticed? No, wise teacher. Again, the same reason. There's no self-reflection left now, because karma has ended. In this way, karma is the field, consciousness the seed, and craving the moisture. It's important to remember those three things. The karma is the field, consciousness the seed, and craving the moisture, because that's what we're dealing with on a constant basis. That metaphor of that type of an environment. The consciousness of human beings rooted in ignorance and bound by craving is established in wrong view. Established in wrong view, ignorance, meaning renewed becoming, is produced. I know I said that twice. I wanted to make the point, and that's the end of the sutta. Again, that last line teaches the whole Dhamma. When we are clinging to our own ignorance, when we're rooted into ignorance, we can only become further ignorance. That's what that last line states. Established in wrong view, renewed becoming is produced. Renewed becoming, renewal of that ignorance, is the only thing that can follow from that. So I said I was going to check email if anybody's asking any questions. So I will before we go. I think that's the end of tonight's talk. Oh, look who's here. There's Mary and Lorna. Let me see what Lorna's got to say, and I'll get to Mary's. I don't know if you're just saying hello or not. Yes. Thank you for reminding me to talk slowly, Lorna. And Mary and David sent the email too. Good. I'm glad, Mary and David, I'm glad you joined. And there's one other person that joined online tonight. Maybe more, who knows? Again, if you have any questions, just send me an email and I'll get back to you. But I think this worked out pretty well for continuing to have our class. I'll repeat this class again Thursday, maybe. Looks like I might be canceling Thursday's class and Saturday's class. Who knows if we have it. But if you want to come and join the Sangha to have this class too, it'd be nice to see you on Saturday morning. I know Lorna will be there, and David and Mary come occasionally anyway. So I'll be repeating this class on Saturday, and then we'll get into week 11 next week. Okay, well, thank you all for joining. It was fun doing it here. This is the first sit I've done in my new sunroom. This is where I'll be meditating from now on, and it was great. Bodhi likes when I do hold classes at home rather than going to Frenchtown because he can join. Right? He's such a good boy. He was meditating with us the whole time. All right. Well, thank you all. Oh, we finished with the Karaniya Metta Sutta. I wonder if you thought about that. Is she going to finish with Metta? Yes, I am. So again, find your relaxed meditative posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And again, take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the words of the Buddha from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class. Thanks for joining me online. See you all soon. Peace.